Nice. They're gonna play Possum Stock too. I'm so excited. Possum Stock's gonna be awesome.
Awesome stock.
Yeah, it will. I actually ran into Allie this weekend and talked to her for a
Really?
while. Yeah.
Oh, um,
And they were like, "We are so sorry. We keep missing y'all." And I was like, "We are too."
yeah, that'd be a
But
great show.
yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, we'll be out of town for that. We're all going on a band cabin trip for that weekend, so we won't be here.
It happens. I hope y'all have a great time. You going to
Oh,
Gatlinburg?
Yeah, we'll be up in Sevierville in a big old cabin. It's gonna be
Nice.
nice.
I love it up there.
cool.
I've been to like the little ski resort they've got there like two or three times. And I've been to Dollywood a couple of times. And both times I've been to Dollywood, I was tripping really hard on mushrooms.
Oh my God.
Did you ride that fire ride, the little fire hydrant, firehouse ride? That's my favorite ride at
Yeah,
Dolly.
yeah, yeah. The one that goes up and then yeah, it goes backwards.
It's the
How
really
Is that
old
the one?
school one.
Oh, okay.
The one that's
It's
like
inside,
inside.
right? Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, I
yeah.
remember that one.
how was the roller coasters on shrooms?
Oh man. So I thought it was gonna make it like more intense, but it was actually like super dissociative. Like I was looking at myself like we did one of those like needles that just drop straight down.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And like in free fall, my heart rate is like normal and I'm like completely detached from it. And I just remember thinking like this is a crazy thing that people do. Like
Right. Yeah.
this is like relatively dangerous.
You had a good babysitter?
Actually, the people I was with were not into that kind of stuff, and they didn't know until after we left that I was tripping. So I think I did a pretty good job like keeping it
Awesome.
contained because they didn't even know.
Professional.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew if I told them, they'd be like worried about me the whole time.
Yeah.
So I didn't even tell them.
Hey, Rusty, I'm Casey. This is Molly. I think we've met.
Yeah, we've met, right?
I've met Molly. I've never met you, Casey.
Okay. Yeah. Good to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah, good to meet you. The I'm not sure about possum stock yet. I told Alex, I'm kind of up in the air. I thought I might be in one day. I don't know. The idea of sleeping in my Jeep and basking in my own sweat scares me a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows? We'll see. Time will tell.
All right, we got more. Good timing.
All right.
You hear me?
Yeah, thanks for coming.
All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm using my phone right now instead of my computer, so I'm not
I
sure what's
got
happening.
Mhm.
I'm not used to this.
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Great.
All right, I'm gonna go pee real quick and then we'll get started.
I hope we can hear him peeing.
Like we'll take a bite with him.
Yes. Call the urinal thirsty boy.
Drink up, thirsty boy.
Drink up, thirsty boy.
Then he'll admit to the murder.
Yes, then he'll
Yeah.
yes.
I killed her. I can't believe it. I killed her.
Say, Molly, this book was your idea, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. So
Glad you enjoyed.
Yeah, we got the book, what, like a year ago, year and a half ago, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll have to save this conversation
Yeah.
for when he returns.
Yes.
But yes, yes.
How's it going, Hyatt?
Where's
Hey,
Liz?
what's going on?
Have you been
She
have you been
is
using the
getting her
tools?
hair worked on right now.
All right. What'd you say,
All
Lazy?
right, long time no see.
Okay. Alice, welcome to the 30th consecutive book club. We've been reading a book every month for 2.5 years. It's been a wild ride. We've done a lot of fiction, fantasy, self-help, everything from The Art of War to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So this has been quite a fun time. Big part of why I do this is because I'm not an avid reader, and this really forces me to do that. So thank you all for participating and being part of this. Appreciate you.
Thank you for organizing it.
Yeah, man. So this is Casey's first time on the podcast. Casey Cooper, the great and powerful Casey. Thanks for being here, dude.
Yeah, thank you for doing this, man. This is awesome.
And we also have the Supreme herself here, Miss Molly Kent of Omenbringer infamy. Go stream Thick Darkness. That's thick with 2 C's. Omenbringer's debut full-length album. We also have Hyatt Collins from Cassette Stress. Their single Hand of Benediction is out now, so definitely go listen to that as well.
Apparently, I'm shrouded in darkness.
Do you need help?
Which is appropriate.
Help!
Bear Buckler, do you need assistance?
We need to call an adult or a policeman. Let me see if I can. Hang on. Talk amongst yourselves. I'm going to see if I can fix this.
Cassette Stress also has a show tomorrow night. If you're listening to this live, they're playing at the Cobra.
That's correct. It'll also be shrouded in darkness. It's an all goth industrial show, so just sticking with the theme.
I think More Is Not Enough is on that, Stuffed Spider, and Kindle Cage.
Yeah.
So definitely go check them out.
It'll be a fun one.
We also got some more book club regulars with us this evening. The one and only Rusty Fowler is here. He has music available as well. You can find it under Teleguy. Definitely go check that out. And we have David Penna. Also the one and only. I wonder how you ever think about like how many people in the world have your name? Because it's probably not the one and only. I'm sure there's a lot of Alex Freemans in the world.
Yeah, that's
Still a
true.
cool name.
Yes.
Thanks. And my sweet boy, Lazy Phalanges, is joining us from Colorado.
Hey, what's up?
Look at his face. That's what he
Yeah.
looks like.
Beautiful.
Wooby wooby.
So we are gathered here today to talk about The Tools by Phil Stutz and Barry Michaels, something like that. Thanks for recommending this, Molly. This has been really life-changing for me. It's really powerful stuff. How did you first come across this?
So I kept seeing an advertisement on Netflix for the documentary, and it seemed interesting. And I ended up watching the trailer, and it seemed really interesting. And so I was like, I'll just try it. And I started watching it, and I immediately got really into it. And I immediately thought of Casey. And so I actually stopped watching it so that we could start it over and watch it together. And it was really fantastic. And then that inspired both of us to go get the book and just like read the book and really glean more from the tools. So yeah, thank you for making that documentary, Jonah Hill, even though you're a tool. Thank you for trying, to share this person's philosophy who, that the reason that this is a co-written book by Phil and Barry is it's like pretty obvious when you watch the documentary that Phil is he's a teacher. He doesn't want to be a writer. And so this man and Jonah Hill, both those people were like, this is so helpful, this information and these tools, that we want to try to get them out to as many people as possible. So then he helped co-write this book, and then Jonah Hill helped make the documentary about it. And it was all about just like, wow, I think everybody could benefit from this. And Phil wants everybody to have tools and healing, but he can't therapize everyone. He can't be everyone's therapist. So let's try to make this more accessible to people who may not be able to go to therapy, but they might have a Netflix subscription,
Yeah. It's as accessible as possible. Get the message out. Yeah. I do have a lot of respect for Jonah Hill deciding to try and spread that message. I also like I was trying to take it seriously, but laughed so hard at his moments in the movie. I couldn't help myself because there were some really cringe moments with Jonah Hill in
Oh, and
the documentary.
his mom and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a fucking cardboard cutout of him at like 15. And I'm like, this is like really vulnerable and brave of him to do this. But also I feel bad because I am laughing like really hard.
Where do you think he keeps that? Is it in his bedroom? Is it in his
Yeah.
garage to scare a predator from not coming up? Where
I
does he
think-
keep that?
I think it's on his ceiling and it's the first thing he sees when he wakes up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
that's
talks to it, says he loves it.
Yeah. Nah.
Yeah, Jonah Hill went on like a 20-minute rant about how he didn't want to talk about himself. He's like, I don't want to talk about myself. It's
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It did feel very a little self-serving for him. Do you know if that
Yeah.
was before or after the controversy with him?
It was before
Mhm.
because he used a lot of the language and the tools that not necessarily these tools, but the tools to manipulate his girlfriend, like to all the stuff he learned in therapy, he was using that against her to manipulate her mentally, but not these tools though. So, yeah.
But yeah, he's but you're right. We should give him a little bit of credit
Yeah.
for just being that vulnerable to say, in order to tell Phil's story, I essentially have to tell my story,
Yeah.
and so I think that was like powerful and brave of him.
Yeah, there was a
even though
good
he-
lesson to be learned from Jonah Hill. It's like he thinks that like success and money's gonna cure his childhood trauma and all that, and it's and it doesn't. You got to work through that stuff. Actually, no measure of success is going to just make it go away, or money.
Right.
Things.
For sure. It was definitely, yeah, credit where credit's due. It was very brave and it did get a lot of people like access to some very important information. So
Yeah.
definitely got to give him that. I think it would have been like, because he also directed it. So I think it would have been a little bit more powerful. Like, I definitely understand because you're interviewing Phil Stutz, you want to show him practicing therapy on a patient. Like, I think that's an important angle to show. I think it would have been more powerful if it wasn't like if he had just gotten like literally anyone else to demonstrate that. But yeah, again, it's a really good documentary.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the book's for, though, because it gives you way many more cases and people that it's helped.
Yeah. So now that we got
my dog, sorry,
the Jonah Hill part out of the way, we can get into tools. I've already started to apply these things in my life, and it's had like really immediate results. Like the first tool about like forward motion and like being a self-starter, the force of forward motion, the reversal of desire. That's been really helpful for me. I'm not very disciplined, and just like one example is I've been exercising more, because it, instead of like shying away, like I can be kind of a procrastinator, like I'll get to it later, but this gives me like an urgency, and we'll talk about Jeopardy later on too. That's also created an urgency for me. But how have the tools benefited y'all? I mean, just go around in a particular
I
order.
was going to say everybody should should answer that.
Yeah, whoever wants to go first.
You want to go first, Molly?
What was the question? Is it specifically about the reversal of desire, or is it about
No, just any of the tools? How have the tools helped you? Like examples.
Well, there's a lot of things that the tools have helped me with. One of the things that I'm sure everybody can relate to is the maze. and you get lost in this maze of anger or hate. It's just a cycle that you're stuck in because somebody does something unfair to you, and you have to learn to not be wanting fairness out of life, because you're not going to get that, and so you have to have a way to escape the maze. And actually, I have a fun way of doing this, because what it says in the book is that you should try to make these tools, like tool them to yourself. And so I have a special way of like entering and exiting the maze that I think you will appreciate. And then there's one other thing I'll mention, and then then that's enough out of me. But the maze that I specifically picture is the one from The Labyrinth, the movie. And if you watch The Labyrinth, at the beginning of the movie, when she's trying to get into the labyrinth, she cannot find a way in, and the little worm says, there's entrances all around you, you just have to change your perspective, you're just not looking right. And then she just walks straight forward, and it's revealed that it's an illusion, and there's actually an entrance into the maze, and she walks in. So I visualize the maze that way, that it looks like there's all this maze in front of me, but really if I just walk straight through, that I'll start to come through it. And what I visualize is walking through the maze, and the branches like cutting and striking my face. And I just keep going and keep letting, that's the thing, accepting the pain, like being willing to go through the pain. I just keep going and walking until I walk out of the maze into the bright, bright sunlight. And that is like how I visualize the maze. Like it gets darker as you go in, and then as I start exiting more and more, then it comes into this like bright open space. So that's like how I visualize the maze. And I love that. And then the other thing that was like my favorite thing in the book, and I bookmarked it for today, was talking about being a creator and how great it is to bring something new into the world. And that's what a lot of us that are musicians do and find probably a lot of joy in, is when you're creating music and making something new. And it said the creator won't accept the fate that they're just a consumer, and that everything that they do is with an intention of making an impact on the world. And then the quote, that my favorite quote, was, you have to have a real impact on the if you want to have a real impact on the world, add something new to it. So those were my favorite things to touch on from the tools.
It's such practical advice. And it can be applied immediately. That's what I like about it. Is like as soon as you hear that, you can go practice that. All right, who's next?
I'll jump in there a little bit, Al.
Yeah.
I think for me, and sorry, I'm picking up the dog because she's running around the house barking. I think for me, I'll start on just a general comment, I suppose. I was a little bit surprised how rooted in Buddhism a lot of this is. I'm not a Buddhist, but I've read a lot about it, and I believe a lot of things in Buddhism. And the idea that pain sets me free, the way out is through. Suffering is normal, right? Suffering is a normal thing in the world, and we have to calm ourselves and be able to be okay during the storm. Which is it's a very easy thing to say. It's a very hard thing to do. But I thought all of that was kind of interesting. And then the other term that comes to mind in a couple of the tools is really that everything we want is on the other side of fear, which I truly believe that as well. Touching on what Molly said about being a consumer versus an artist, I do like that they started out that kind of conversation between consumerism and being a creative by saying, the first thing you have to do is, if you want to change the world, the first thing you have to do is you got to be able to change yourself, because you can't influence anybody else if you can't change yourself. And I thought that was a good way of putting that. And then just one more general comment, and I think, particularly when they start talking about the source, and Alex, you've heard me say this before. I was raised Catholic. I am not practicing. I believe in something bigger than me. I don't know what that bigger thing is. You can call it the universe. You can call it the source. You can call it God. You can call it love. You can call it whatever you want. there's something bigger than me. And I like the way that they kind of pulled everything back to, if you're going to be grateful, the way that you're going to tie into the flow of the world or the source is you're going to do it through being grateful. And I really like that too. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I have a lot to say about the religious aspects to this. We'll get into here in a bit.
which
Who's
is
next?
which is more spiritual. It's more spiritual than religious too, because they leave it
Yeah,
pretty open to whatever you want to like make it.
for sure.
There was something that about this, the creativity part of this. Have y'all ever read that book by Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art?
No.
It's kind of about the, pushing through all of the difficulties that, anyone who does anything creatively faces, about, self-doubt, time, other, just other things on your plate, confusion, just all these other things. But there's a thread in that book that he conceptualizes it as the muse, like the ancient Greek notion of there being some other force out there, that is trying to pass something on to people, for creative purposes, and you kind of have to tune into that. I thought that there were echoes in this book of a number of other things that I've read, and that was one thing that stood out to me. That's also a good book, but that is kind of a weird thing sometimes. When you're coming up with something, hard to know where it comes. Sometimes it feels like it's not coming from you, which is a sort of a weird sensation.
Absolutely. As I think a lot of artists can relate to that, where it's like, where did I even get that idea? Let's go next.
I'll go. I think for me, I would say the gratefulness one also seems to be the most impactful. I find I think just the use of the tool as something like almost as a distraction is not quite the right word, but it's sort of like when something negative happens, you can fixate on it, and having a thing to do, which is to like list things that you're grateful for, just immediately gets you off of it. And then you can refocus. I found that to be really useful in application, and as well, it's a pretty interesting thing too, but I found that to be the most useful in application. I found the most interesting tool though in reading to be the inner authority.
Mm.
That one to me stuck out as I guess the other ones I feel like are, you kind of hear variations of them somewhat, not as well explained, but sort of like even the reversal of desire. I would say someone like David Goggins is kind of like the embodiment of that,
Yeah.
where it's like, so I feel like a lot of these tools are like I feel like I've heard them before, not as well explained. So not like not saying like, oh, I've heard this already, but in a way where I'm like, oh, this is that thing I heard about. Whereas the inner authority, I feel like was something that was I don't hear about the shadow as much. I've heard about it a few times, but it seemed to stand out to me of like more uh much different from the other one.
I
Yeah.
thought that was interesting too because it was based on vulnerability, right? When you can communicate your own vulnerability, you have a better chance of connecting with people. I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah. The gratefulness, like the practice of just naming things and then disassociating specific things and just focusing on the feeling itself. It feels like that's very similar to prayer, where it's like you are establishing a connection and expressing gratitude. Where I think some people in like a modern sense get it twisted of like you're asking for things. in like a very like demanding kind of expectant way, like kind of entitled, but it's more about expressing gratitude, and that does connect you with the universe. Yeah, I found that very helpful too, Lazy. David, Casey.
I mean, I'll go. I mean, kind of like you, since you just mentioned that you've been trying to do more exercises and stuff. Um, I've been trying to lose weight like in the maybe like in a month's time right now. I've done it before, but I feel like back then I did it in a cheap and easy way where I would just skip meals, and that was kind of me like avoiding pain. The actual hard way, which is what I'm doing right now, is kind of like rewiring what I find tasty, and kind of like choosing whole foods, and like I'm not skipping meals, but I'm just eating the type of meals that will like fill you up without being like, just a bunch of sauces or fast food or so forth. And I've like so far I've done like I've lost 8 pounds.
Nice, dude.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Casey.
But like I
Oh yeah.
said, it's a lot harder this way, but doing it this way will actually like make it more of a permanent change than
Yeah.
just simply not eating.
Casey.
Yeah. Well, this came about, and Molly recommended this. Right, really good time for me. At a bad time for me, good time for the book. But I was going through therapy and stuff, and I remember one day I was just out hiking with my dogs, and I just kept wasn't really getting what I needed out of therapy, and they all want to kind of delve into the past, your childhood, and stuff like that, and that's stuff that I'd already been around and around and around about in my own head, and it's these, and I was like, I just said one day, while I was hiking in the woods with my dogs, like I was like, man, I just wish I had some kind of tools. I actually, thought the word tools to myself is just something I could do to get through these dark clouds of, and stuff. And then, this came about. Molly recommended this. We watched documentary, then instantly ordered the book and got the book, and read it within a couple of days and started using the tools. And it was just having this in your pocket, just to be able to go to. They're just simple, like, just things you can use just to, you got to practice them, but you can get through those, the dark times, practicing the gratitude, and just, one thing like, and using them all, there's not really one tool that, a lot of tools, you got to use multiple tools to get through such situations. And like I really, the reversal desire, I wanted to get out of my comfort zone and do something. Like I wanted to play guitar on stage, which I'm not very good and whatever. And I just wanted to challenge myself, do something that's out of my comfort zone. So I had to use like all the tools. I had to use Jeopardy, thinking about what I'd say on my deathbed, that like if I had the opportunity to get on stage and play guitar, do those kind of things. So I used Jeopardy, had to use reversal desire just to fight through the doubt and stuff. And then before I got on stage, I really had to use the shadow self, this thinking about, my most vulnerable, visualize my most vulnerable self. And, I was so scared to get up on stage, but I just kept visualizing like my teenage self, and this, like I had long hair. I came from a small town. I got bullied and stuff for having long hair in a small town. And like, so I just visualized that kid, and it's like, this is, it's visualizing me, and, my younger self is connecting with me before I got up there. And just like, it really helped me get up there and go through with it, and do it. And so using all the tools, helped me get through that. So I will give this warning, is like, that was, you have to keep using them, and you have to just really practice them, and don't forget about them, because you can go get through your dark moments, and then there's always going to be something else come up. So you got to just keep them. And I ended up buying like the Cliff Notes version, like through Kindle. So you got it on your phone. It's like a little bit, this is already a short book, but this is, really condenses down the tools. And, but I really need to read them every couple of weeks, just go through them and make sure I'm using them, because they're very, very beneficial.
Yeah, it's just like David said, you can't give up. Like it's gonna have to be a lifestyle change, like a lifetime thing that you work on. But that's what, and that's what Alex brought up earlier, like going to like try to start exercising. All of that is just confronting pain. it's a lot easier to go eat the sweet treat to not work out. Like it's all about just confronting and using, sometimes like with the same mindset I use against my day job, where I'm just like so burnt out on doing it and stuff. And I just go use one of the tools. I forget what it's even called, but the one where you just say, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen if I just go confront this right now and get some of this done? And it's like a little bit of pain, but then you're not worrying about it anymore and you get it over with. So yeah, it's just like they talk about that in the tools. Like everybody's going to fail. Everybody is going to give up and stop using them. But it's all about your mindset and going back in and saying, well, time to reread them, like I'm going to start using them again. And not just like continuing to grow is like what everybody should be doing in their life. Like trying to just get a little bit better all the time is what makes you a master at the end of your life.
Yeah.
And I think your comment about a little bit at a time, and that fits right in with what David said about Hayes trying to work on his losing a little bit of weight and everything else. And I think we don't live in an all or nothing world, right? I mean, and so many times we make everything either black or white. And I apologize if my dog's barking, but I can't hold it the whole time. um, I think everybody views things as very black and white, and things aren't black and white, right? And it's not all or nothing. And you can fail on a day and recover the next day. Now that's real easy for me to say. Molly described her maze like the labyrinth. My maze is more like a pit. When things go south for me, I go right to the bottom. So I have to work pretty hard to stay out of there. So I think we have to get over the idea of that life is fair. That's mentioned specifically in the book, and I used to tell my kids that all the time. So you think life is fair? Who told you that? I mean, what kind of misconception is that? And that's exactly what they say in the book. It's like, look, there was never anything designed to be fair. It's really how you deal with the things that happen. And I think the tools really does it focuses inward, right? And it's more about concentrating on you and what you can do than anything else. I thought it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, along similar lines, I realized a lot about myself when I was reading this. Um, like I learned a lot in a short period of time in like my early 20s just through life experience and mind altering substances, and like went through like a transformative period. And then I think I stopped searching and stopped learning at some point because I'm like, oh, I figured it out. And I didn't really realize I've been doing this, but like the shadow for me is naked. Like I see myself naked and like the worst version of me, like overweight, lazy, insecure, like hesitant, and really looking at that, ironic, like paradoxically, like has made me more in the moment. Like I've already started trying this. Like I'll see that version of myself in the room, like when I'm talking to a customer at work, or I'm talking to someone in a social situation, and I'm present. Like even though I'm like actively hallucinating, I am like here. I'm in the moment. And confronting reality, like I didn't realize, like I'm a big truth seeker, but I didn't realize I've been like actively lying to myself, like actively hiding, like looking away from the truth. And yeah, that's really helped me a lot, is just accepting reality and confronting it. And that's something that they talk about in Stutz, the documentary. Is he's like, there's three things you'll never get away from, and that's hard work, constant hard work, pain, and what was the other one? Disappointment, I think. Like and that's hard to hear. You don't want to hear that. Like, but the sooner you accept that, like the sooner you can deal with it and like move on. Yeah. I get caught in the maze a lot too. Like thinking about a former partner, you know, um, like thinking about the past, being stuck in a rut. And in so many ways, this book has really helped me out a lot. Um, and going into it, I really didn't expect it to be this. It reads more like some of like the chaos magic stuff I've read. Like it reads more like magic than it reads like psychology. And I really didn't expect that going into it, but they are not ashamed at all about that. They don't shy away from that at all. They're like very in your face, like this is a spiritual thing. You are connecting with a higher power. And it is cool because they're not forcing like really an ideology or like a mythos on you. It is
Yeah.
just what it is. Yeah.
One thing I like that Casey said about it's like past therapy sessions and stuff. Uh, I feel like people wouldn't go to regular doctors if they worked that way. If they just talked about your past mistakes or whatever, but didn't offer actual solutions. Like a lot of people don't treat mental health as like something that is actually fixable or whatever. When we have to think of it that way, like that's the only way forward. And I
Exactly.
think stuff like this can like help people realize that like you do have a control with like the way you perceive things, with the way you can endure pain or just have something to push you forward towards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I also really like that he talks about inner growth as well. That you can still like even if the world around you is you're perceiving as like disappointment and stuff, that doesn't mean that you can't grow inward. But sort of like if you apply the tools and you keep going, say like working out, even if you didn't say lose as much weight as you wanted to, and um, next time you weigh yourself, you didn't lose any weight or something. If you still kept going and doing the workouts, that means your inner strength has grown because you're able to go do that now. Whereas before you couldn't even get yourself to go do that. So it kind of gives you these other ways to look at progress as opposed to getting fixated on like, oh, that didn't go exactly the way I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The motivation part, like they talk in, I can't remember where, but somewhere in here, they talk about how people have the misconception that you motivate yourself to take action, but it's actually the opposite. You take action to motivate yourself. And that's like, I never really thought of it that way, but it's so true. Like, like you don't like hype yourself up to go work out. You work out to go hype yourself up. Like, and that's like a cycle of back to the magic. Like there's all these like diagrams, like sigils in here. Um like and this what that does is it conceptualizes it for you in a very simple way. And it's so brilliant for Phil Stutz to illustrate it that way. Because being able visualization is everything, right? Like being able to see it. And um when you in any kind of magic practice, there is ritual. It's like there has to be an action involved. Um so like whatever's in your mind or in the ether, you have to bring it into reality through a song or a dance or a sigil or just vocalize it. But you have to take a physical action. And I just really love that it tells you like do something, like actually practice doing a thing in order to make a change in the exterior to affect the interior. And then once you've made a change in the interior, you can affect the world. You can change the world.
Yeah, because the
It's like
intention doesn't change anything, right? intention absolutely changes nothing. You have to act on whatever it is. You know, my dad used to tell me when I was a little kid, he used to say, do something even if it's wrong. It's like, you know, you see you kind of get stuck. He's like, dude, you got to move, right? You can't stay there. And I think that's something that is not easy even for adults to do. But I think it's a really important thing, you know. And it is based in action. This book is about action. It's not about intentions. It's not
Yeah.
about thinking about what happened to me when I was 5. It's about, hey, this is where I am today, and here's some things that I can use to cope with that and kind of fix that and adjust the way I think and I live around those things. And that's pretty practical. So, and it is
Yeah.
about action.
And that's the idea of doing something, and that being how you really change as opposed to thinking about changes. It's something I've read in a lot of places in books like this. And I think one of the things about it is, it almost forces a change of perspective, because if you're, you know, if you are going and doing something, then all of a sudden, in some ways, your brain is looking at you, at yourself, and saying, "Well, I must be the kind of person who goes and does this thing." That you can think about it all you want, but if you actually, it's almost, you create a cognitive dissonance between, you know, what you used to be and what you are now by doing something. And it makes it a lot easier to kind of to change your perspective on who you are. That was one thing that I thought was kind of ran throughout the whole book is sort of I don't know, changing your perspective on how you look at yourself, and, you know, and your place in the world and your relation to other people. And by doing things.
Yeah. Like Rusty said, it's a book of action. Yeah. We can't hear you. Something happened to your audio.
Really?
I can hear you now.
Oh, it says it's working. Huh. Well, I like that it encourages you to make your own tools. And one of the things that I did that I've changed in it is, instead of using the word pain, because pain is not really as effective for me, the word that I use is fear. And the avoidance of fear and the fear of the unknown keeps a lot of people from doing and achieving their dreams and going out and doing, you know. And that, just like Casey said, like if you use the Jeopardy thing and you think about, well, when I'm on my deathbed, am I gonna be annoyed with myself for not going out and taking and living my life to the fullest? Yeah. So it's like, I want to get to the deathbed and have no regrets and be all used up, old bag of shit, rusty bag of shit. I want to be fucking tore up because I went out and I worked my hardest and I did my best to just go out and get everything that I wanted, you know, because no matter what you believe, like, this particular lifetime, here you are, here's your chance. Like, why wouldn't you just like go get your dreams, you know? And
Yeah.
so that's like what I do with music, like what a lot of people I think do with, especially with music, is like they're out there going and trying to make something that maybe will even outlive themselves and be their legacy. And so yeah, I love to use that tool and for myself, and use the word fear instead of pain, because that's what's kept me from doing a lot of things in my life when I was younger, when I totally could have done those things, you know. But it was mostly just like fear of what other people would think or what my family would think, things like that. But now that I don't give a damn, I'm out there making a metal band with strippers on the pole dancing with me on stage, you know, like I'm living the dream. So I guess it took me however long, took me 35 years to get here, but here I am living the dream with all my titty witches. Awesome.
Titty
Yeah,
witch
you're
bang.
creating something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Molly, I have to ask this question because I think it's true. I bet this is true for everyone on this call. Why is why, and it mentions it in the book, but I don't know that I really wrote it down. Why is acceptance, or why are other people's opinions so important, and why do those opinions drive fear in us? Why does that fear of judgment get so strong? Because that, I guarantee, I'm the old man on the call here. That's been true my entire life, right? And I know it's probably true for every one of us. Why are the people's opinions? Why does that weigh so heavily on us? Because it does.
I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of people out there, like, we can relate it to so many things, but I mean, there's so many people that just this being themselves is so difficult. Like a trans person that wants to live their life as the gender of their choosing, like they may not be safe to go outside in that kind of dress in their community. Or a person who I know a lot of people like this that are like, their family is so religious that if they came out as gay or if anything, they would have to completely start over. They would have no family left. They would be disowned. And so that kind of stuff is like, that's a little bit easier to like forgive, like when somebody would have to go through so much pain just to be themselves. But a lot of people are so scared of being their authentic selves for such smaller reasons, And so, like, as I got older, I just was like, you know what? If my family doesn't like the stuff that I like, fine. I really don't want them to. It's not cool enough. It's not metal enough if they like it, Like, I don't give a shit. But, giving a fuck and that subtle art of not giving a fuck, like, that is just something that I just don't think a lot of people have until they get older. Like you start to get older and you care less about like what other people think, and hopefully, because like I said, you got one chance to go do it, one chance to go be that person, be Casey, be Molly, be everybody. So obviously I have sympathy for people that aren't brave enough or don't have the strength to go through so much pain just to be themselves. But it's like, ultimately, if everybody was doing that and just like everybody was cool with other people doing that, and if it doesn't bother you, like, let them do it, then the world will be a better place to live in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's like your ultimate thing that you should be working towards. Like, who is the authentic self, and how do I get to express that in the most like joyful, best way for me?
My father was so insecure, like when he was younger, that he wouldn't even go into like a McDonald's and sit down and eat, just because he thought people were judging the way he dressed, his clothes on his back, and things like that. And he's just suffered his whole life from this crippling social anxiety. So I've witnessed him, and I've suffered it because but I've just, the older I get, it's just like the more and more I'm like, no, hell no, I'm not going to live like that. It's like, why? So I force myself into situations where I'm uncomfortable, the following the tools here, just force myself where I'm uncomfortable in social situations, get up on stage, whatever it may be. But
and what's also really helpful is doing some mushrooms or some kind of a psychedelic that helps you step outside of your ego, because that's the problem, is like, especially younger people, how self-conscious you were when you were in middle school or high school, and it's because you have this ego thing that's telling you everybody's looking at you, when in reality nobody is going to remember your shoes that you wore on Tuesday or whatever stupid shit that you were worrying about like back then. Like, losing the ego is super duper important to like not giving a fuck.
Yeah, because going on with your ego thing, a lot of people don't realize that like some forms of anxiety or like self-doubt, they're kind of like, it's almost you being full of yourself in a way that you truly think people care like that.
yeah, right,
And
exactly.
and it helps to get over that.
Yeah.
Self
Everybody's just worrying about themselves, and they don't really give a damn about you necessarily in that aspect. They're just worrying about their own selves. Yeah.
self-loathing is another form of narcissism. You're,
Truly.
you're still fixated on yourself.
Truly. Yeah.
I do think I guess in our culture, and probably other cultures, like even if your parents aren't strict, you probably have a growing up, like just your school experience is pretty strict. You're kind of constantly being told you need to behave a certain way or you'll get punished and you're bad. So it kind of creates a self-doubt of your authentic self. You can't really express freely. So even though you'll have a thing where it's like, I think people will exaggerate it and blow it up in their head, where it's really not as strict as it feels like. I think there is plenty of that there, that, like your grades and you do the homework and this and that, that it does feel like you're constantly being told you have to act within the expectations of someone else or you'll be punished. And
Yeah.
it seems like it starts so young that then by the time you are an adult, you'll even approach work like that because you think school taught me how to work. Now work feels the same way,
And you
even
know
though
what's
that's all in your
interesting
head.
about that? They mention that in the book. I don't think I wrote it down, but they mention if you watch kids play, kids aren't self-conscious yet, right? They're totally in the moment. They're not judging themselves when they're very young. They're not judging themselves because they don't recognize anybody else would be judging them at that point in time. So kids are very in the moment. And I said this on another book club. I don't remember what book. And anybody that's in education will hate me for saying it. I've got a sister that's retired from education now, but education is a great thing, right? And it is awesome because it can help you. However, we do squeeze everybody into a particular mold, or we try as a society. And I think when we do that, we drive people away from their creative selves because we want to teach them how to do these things in this particular order and think this way, right? And I think when we drive people away from their creative selves, it does drive us into the world that we live in, which is everybody's focused on consumerism and everything else, and I'm guilty of some of that too, right? I mean, I have stuff, right? And it doesn't mean a damn thing, but I've got a lot of stuff. But I think along the lines that from the book anyway, I think that there's got to be a recognition that there's a time in our lives of what we go through and how we are educated or how we're brought up that really kind of squeezes creativity out of us. So a lot of people end up not being creative when they could have been one of the most creative people you would have ever known if they would just been allowed to remain in that. So
Yeah. I think the theme we're all touching on right now is we need education without institutionalization. Like we that's what schools, unfortunately, it doesn't have to be this way, but that's what school's really about, is not teaching you, but getting you to conform to, like, getting you up at a certain time and at a place at a certain time. That way you're going to be a good worker ant later on in life. Like giving you like in compartmentalization, right? It's like you are a student right now. You're not you are just a student right now. You're going to listen and obey. Um, yeah. And we were talking earlier about like conventional therapy, just Casey brought it up, where it doesn't really do a whole, like, it's good to know why you have the problems that you do, but unless you have the tools to help you out with that, it really, diagnosing the problem is not enough. You need steps to follow to get out of that. And the conspiracy theory side of me is like, okay, well, if I give you the tools to fix yourself, that's not repeat business. And that's a lot of the medical field, is like, instead of actually fixing your problem, what about I get you on a regular routine of medications? And it's like same thing with therapy. If like you if I don't actually fix your problems, you'll just keep coming back to me. I'll give you little breadcrumbs here and there, like string you along.
I agree
well,
with that. Yeah.
I think there's benefit in talking about things in therapy. There again, going back to what several people said earlier, there has to be action. They can't just be talking about it, right? There's got to be an action taken. Um, and which leads us right back to where Phil Stutz was going with this.
Yeah. What a great guy. Like to just devote your life to something like this, you know? He really did. He is a creator that has made an impact on life. What a just great, genuine person. It was really crazy because I was reading the book before I watched the documentary, and when I put a face to like to the tools I was learning about, like that was crazy, man. Like just the way he talks is like he's such a therapist, you know? Like
Yeah.
he's great.
I love how
He
dry he is, like very dry, dark humor.
Hmm.
I love that about him.
Yeah.
he narrated the audiobook too. Or
Oh wow.
he's part of it. I mean, Barry did most of it, but Phil jumped in there periodically too, so you got to hear him. So,
Yeah. I listened to the audiobook too. It's good. Yeah.
Is the documentary, is this the same? Is this the thing that Jonah Hill put together, or is this okay? I didn't know whether there was like a dramatization that he was involved in a separate documentary. Okay, I haven't watched it yet.
It's worth it. It's good.
Yeah.
And it goes into like Phil's history, which I think was cool. Like talks about his past and him growing up and what trauma like he went through as a young person. And it's very, very really connects you to him, you know, like
Yeah. I enjoyed it a lot. Especially like I mean, even the parts with Jonah Hill that I was kind of cringing at, I still enjoyed it a lot. Maybe not for the right reasons, but it was very entertaining.
oh
Uh,
yeah,
and
you're
and
gonna laugh a few times for sure.
yeah, but like yeah, but the parts with Phil Stutz like hit so hard, and like he's talking about his life, and like he's got Parkinson's, and it's like degenerative, you know, like he's getting worse, and it's pretty heartbreaking. Like that was an emotional watch for me. Yeah.
I'm glad that they did this because obviously he has a degenerative disease, so he's not going to be around much longer. So I'm really glad that A, we got the book down, and B, there's some like video of him and talking about it, you know.
Yeah, this is like very important stuff to be recorded because like there's no telling when the next like Phil Stutz will come around. Um, yeah, it has to be documented, and he's got so much more to say too. I hope he puts out more works. I will absolutely read anything that Phil Stutz is involved with.
I think that's the thing. He's like a creative and he doesn't want to write the book. It was like forced upon him to do this documentary and this book. He wants to help people, but he doesn't want to do that. And so I think that's cool that there were some people that were like, no, you have to. And they pushed him out of his comfort zone to do it.
When y'all do the exercise of visualizing your shadow, and no one has to answer this, but what does it look like? Like what do you see?
I'll answer this. Mine actually looks like a silhouette, so it's not clear. It's like an actual like a shadow, but it looks like Mr. Boss from Smiling Friends.
Dude, that's terrifying. That's scary.
I was like, oh my god, and I was like, oh my, and then I was like, oh my god, it's Mr. Boss.
Oh my God.
Mm.
That'd be, man, mine's just kind of like pathetic. That's terrifying.
Well, so, but then it talks about like working together with your shadow. I was like, well, I guess that works.
Yeah, it's Mr. Boss. So you're
Like,
working
I mean,
together.
yeah, we're gonna get it done, I guess. But
Get it done.
uh,
Mine just looked like me as a little kid because I think that's where most of my insecurities uh, uh, originated and everything else. You know, so it wasn't anything odd for me. It just the unsure part of me, you know. So
Yeah. Anyone else before we move on?
Yeah, mine is my childhood self also back when I was the most vulnerable, like when I had long hair and I was just this was back during the satanic panic era. So I was like in a small town, Alabama. I had long hair. So I guess all the other kids were kind of scared of me. So I got bullied a lot. Just got depressed, quit going to school, fell to fourth grade because of it, and stuff. So I just look at that kid as, and that's my shadow self, just yeah.
Yeah. It's such a healthy exercise, like to integrate with the parts of you that you shun, I think that's part of adulthood. And that, when I say that, there's plenty of people that go their entire lives not doing this, but it is part of like the coming of age thing, is to accept your faults and love them anyway. Not to, because I think I've done a lot of like disrespect to my shadow, like shunning, and um you can't really love yourself if you're doing that.
I
Yeah.
have two shadows. I have the young self shadow and then the shadow from like 2021, 2020. And so like the young shadow was like similar, like no friends, short hair, girl with short hair, it's like made fun of and stuff. And then the older shadow is like me at my most depressed and my most overweight, which made me hate myself and unhappy and stuff like that. Just like not liking how you look and like then just letting it get worse, like using food as a tool to like cover up why you're sad is why so many people become overweight, and so it took me years to lose like all this weight, like 30 pounds worth of weight, and it's like it's just something that you have to completely change your whole mindset about. And it's like I look back at that person, that was like the saddest version of me. So that's who like my shadow is. But yeah, it's just something that you can learn to love and learn to appreciate. That was me. I'm still that person. I've just grown, or I've gotten better. Look what this discipline has gotten me, looking back at the shadow. And that's what you have to do with all of these things. It is discipline. You have to stick with it. You have to stick with your diet. You have to stick with the tools. You have to stick with creativity. Like that's what this is really all about. Is that word comes up a few times in the book. They talk about that it's going to cost you discipline. And that's like what I've learned, like getting older, is that like all of these things that you can achieve, you're not just going to get it by going out and trying it once. You're going to have to go and keep trying and keep failing and just keep with the discipline and know, just like gooby wooby face over here, David, just like David said, like that some days it may not appear that outwardly that you have grown, but you have inside, just by having that discipline and continuing to stick with it, whatever the thing is that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the book mentions we're not like finished products,
Yeah.
or we're not even going to get to a stage that's a finished product until like the day we actually die. And
And how sad would that be to be like, oh shit, this is the best I'm ever gonna be? That's a bad place, especially for an artist. Like, oh fuck, that was the best thing I'm ever gonna do.
Yeah.
I don't know, Alex. I don't know. I think when it comes to an artist, I think you're always looking for that next thing, right? I mean,
You got to.
um, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's one hit wonders out there that have something in the first year of their career and then they never really get to that point. But if they're a true artist, they're they're living for that, right? So they're living for that creative process, not necessarily the hit, right? Some people do it for the hits, right? But other people are doing it because the fact of the matter is this is who I am and I need to do this, right? And I want to do it. And most of the time they do it for themselves, right? I'm trying to do something for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I
I
think, I
hope
think
other people
that,
like it too, but
sorry. I was
no,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say that I think the tragedy for that would be, yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with that. I think, um, if you're really trying to create things your whole life, you're not going to be done on your deathbed. I mean, I know I'm going to be like, maybe that solder and iron, I got something to finish real quick, or whatever. But I think the tragedy would be not that you never, achieved, whatever you thought was going to be the best thing. Cause I don't think I don't think it's ever possible to achieve the platonic ideal of whatever you think the best creative output you could do is. But I think the tragedy would be getting to the end of your life and knowing that you never pushed as hard as you could to bring those things about.
Yep.
Yeah, to die with the music in you,
Yeah.
right?
Bob Ross says he has a great video, a very, very good little video that he said that, the day that I make a perfect painting is the day that I'll put my paintbrush down. But every single painting that I've ever done, I look at it and I think, I'm going to do this a little better next time.
Yeah.
Change that, and so that's what I was talking about being at the end of your life and becoming a master, like these people that like hero dreams of sushi kind of thing. Like you spend all this time, every single time. You shouldn't be overly critical, but you should always like criticize yourself and just think that you could do better, and next time you will, do more.
I think it's also something where it's the best version of it is the one that's the most authentic expression of yourself, not the one that is the most liked by other people. So even if you're a one-hit wonder, that means that's a lot of people liked it and maybe you made a lot of money, but that doesn't mean it's the best one that you could make to you.
Right.
Yeah. And near the end of the book, when it starts talking about how this applies to like not just the individual but society, it's talking about I love this part where it says let's see if I can find it real quick. Where it's talking about how it gives an analogy of how God has to force you into situations because the only thing he can't give you is the ability to create. And that is really something that you get from adversity. I mean, children are very, very creative, but once you have like discipline with an instrument or a paintbrush, you have more capacity to really make something beautiful. I can't find it, but I think we all need to find a creative outlet, even if it's not art, right? Like, find a way to move in the world in a way that actually affects it. Like Rusty was saying, like it's inaction is better than like messing up, like not than falling and slipping up. That's way better than not having tried in the first place.
Yeah. You got to do something, right?
Yeah. And what Molly was talking about with fear, like confronting fear, what greater way to confront fear than to see a bigger fear, which is death? Like we're all going to die. We're all going to get old and die. And if you can keep that in mind, everything else is inconsequential. What people think about you does not matter because there's something way bigger to be afraid of, and that's you can die without realizing your potential. It's very like memento mori. Remember that you will die. Yeah, that's a very important thing. We kind of feel in our society like I don't think anyone would like say that outright, but we get lulled into a sense that like because we know where our meals are coming from and there's not a ton of urgency like right there in front of us, we kind of feel immortal. like you're not going to get a car wreck today. Because I mean, it might not be old age. Any of us could die at any moment. And like some of some of us won't make it to be on the old person on their deathbed. It'll be sudden, and you'll go, fuck, I wish I had done something yesterday, because it's over now. Yeah. It's a gift not to be squandered. It's a I don't think hedonism is always the right answer. Like you, I think this is because of like a strict Christian upbringing, but there's some value in it. But I think life is more than just having a good time. You have an obligation, like you have a sacred duty as a living person. And this can be like a non-religious thing too. You have an obligation and a duty to live life to the fullest, that you do have to practice like having it the best time you can. That's your obligation. It's not you have to do that, but you also have to take care of those around you and not hurt people. And you have to help the world. You have to take care of the world that we have. It's more than just having a good time. We have a lot of responsibility being a living person. Yeah. Well, we've been going for about an hour. Any closing thoughts or anything we haven't addressed yet?
My closing thought is just adding on to what you said, and like the whole idea of greater forces kind of adds on to what you're saying, where it doesn't just help you, but it should like help everybody. Like it's all like one thing. Like to help yourself is to help others, and to express yourself helps other people express themselves, and so forth.
Yeah, that's like white magic and black magic is like I give myself for everyone. I sacrifice all, one for all. And then the opposite of that would be all for one. I'm going to sacrifice everyone for myself. And something I've talked about on the podcast before is I think being evil is actually, not only is it wrong, right? But it's also unintelligent, because when you do something bad, you cannot possibly understand. You can't understand the gravity of those effects. Because if you treat someone badly, they may go treat someone else badly, and it becomes a generational chain of. And so, like David was saying, when you help the world, it helps you. Like that's the best thing you can do for yourself, is to take care of the world around you. And the worst thing you can do for yourself is to make it hell for everyone else, because when everyone's gone and you're standing at, it's like a Beelzebub, the Lord of Flies. It's like you're king, but you're king of shit. Like all you have is shit, so it doesn't matter. Like that's rock bottom. Whereas if you're like a tiny part of a much bigger, beautiful thing, that's paradise. That is the best place to be.
I
Yeah.
think we can't underestimate the power of our actions or the power of our words, the impact of them on other people, and the impact of other people's words or actions on us. Because I know that's something that I've been trying to pay attention to, what I say and do, as well as trying to receive things that other people say and do that I maybe haven't for a lot of my life. So, good point out.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for being here. This has been, yeah, go ahead. Oh, we can't hear you again. I don't know what
Oh,
happened.
you might be muted.
No.
But now, can you hear me
Yes,
now?
yes, we can hear
Yep.
you now.
Okay, here's what I have to say. Since everyone, it seems, has gleaned something from this, my wish is that everyone share it and not gatekeep these tools. You know, that's what therapists,
Yeah.
that's what he taught. That's the whole thing. He felt like he couldn't gatekeep this information. He had to get it out to other people. So it's like, give it to someone else.
Yeah,
And
I've gifted this book. It's only like what, $7 or something like that on Amazon. I've sent it to several friends, whether they want it or not. They can throw it in the trash. They can give it away. But I've like, hey, you got to read this book, and
but if you just sit down and talk to and tell somebody, the excitement that you have from the tools will get them interested in it. So it's like, just tell people about it and don't gatekeep it and give it away. And just like all of y'all are saying, like, it's all relates to this like bigger, vaster community where when everybody wins, so like we all are doing better. So just like gift the tools to whoever you can, either as a book or tell them to watch the movie, or even just write down and show them little pictures, or just talk about your favorite tool to them. Do it.
So,
Yeah.
Alex, I got to jump in here and say one thing too. A guy I work with just texted me, and he's been watching, and he just sent me a text, and he said, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man." And it's a quote from George Bernard Shaw. But he just sent me that a second ago and said he was watching. So
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. Yeah, and if you're watching this right now, go pick up the tools.
yeah.
Yeah, we've been talking about it, but it's still,
I'll bring you my copy.
Well, everybody's going to want to keep a copy, buy someone else a copy, because like I say, you're going to want to keep using these. And like the first and the fifth tool, those are tools to be used every day, because those are tools like the fifth tool is the Jeopardy. So it's always like, if I'm on my deathbed, what I've wanted to call my loved one and tell them I love them, or reach out to a friend I haven't seen in a while, or take that chance to go get a new job or something like that. And the first tool is the reversal of desire, is getting out of your comfort zone. So we all should be doing something we're uncomfortable doing every single day, whether it's working out, doing something performance wise, whatever it may be, doing that. But and the other tools are just dealing with adversity. But there's tools to be used every single day.
And take your copy and go and mark it the fuck up. I had a teacher in college was like, if you're not marking in your book, like you're not going to remember, you're not going to glean anything from it. Like, go in this book, yes, and scribble all over it.
Notes, yeah.
Like, make the notes, because then if you don't need this, you can pass this on, and then the next person can read it and see what was really stood out to you, which is also super interesting as well. But mark it up. Market zero.
Yeah, I'm definitely not giving away my copy. It's got all my stuff in there.
Yeah, it's so cheap. It's so cheap. Buy it for friends for the birthday, Christmas, whatever.
I like what you said earlier too, Casey, like just a minute ago, with like the Jeopardy part, but also like applying it to like if you, like, again, you're gonna die and it could be tomorrow. Like it may not be 50 years from now. Tell people you love them. Like, tell your friends and the people you hold close, like, how much you value them,
That's one of the biggest regrets people have, is when they lose a loved one, they always they regret not telling that person how they felt about them. Or
be vulnerable with yourself and with others.
Forgiving people, I'm sure that's a deathbed regret, just forgiving somebody for some silly little thing, and telling them you love them. But live life like that. The first and the fifth tool, those are be applied every single day of your life. The other three tools are whenever adversity comes about, which comes about every day. But those first and fifth tools are just ones to be done every single day of the rest of your life. You always act out of your comfort zone, and be out of your comfort zone every day. Do something small out of your comfort zone, whether it's working out, doing something, and whatever it may be.
Alex, I love you.
I love you too, dude.
I love you, boys.
Love you.
I love all of you.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have such a good community, and I'm so just grateful to know all of you.
Yeah, you too, man. And don't, you're not the procrastinator, lazy dude. You put together this, you got the podcast, you go into all these shows, dude. You got so much going on, man. Yeah,
Yes, thank
you're
you.
inspiration to me, man. So don't be so hard on yourself. But yeah,
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank
yeah,
you.
man. I got a lot of respect for you.
Casey, come back anytime, dude. Let's
Yeah,
and Molly too, anytime. Speaking of which, if y'all are interested, and no pressure, but next month we're reading I, Robot, recommended by my buddy Steven. So I've never read that one. It'll
yeah.
be vastly different from this.
Is that a Philip K. Dick book?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
the first of his works I've read too. So,
Yeah, me either. I know. What's the robot's dream or something like that? That's his biggest one, right? Or something like that. But
Electric
I know
Sheep
he's
or
got.
something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Alice, thanks for being here. We will see you next week.
Bye bye.
Love y'all. Bye.